Shalom, friends. Welcome to this third shiur in the series of understanding our preparation for the giving of the Torah for Shavuot, Matan Torah. And the idea is that we are preparing ourselves through the process of the time period between Pesach and Shavuot. Pesach, we are taken out of Egypt, and we have a mitzvah to perform of counting 49 days. And thereafter, we celebrate the festival of Shavuot, Matan Torah. In our last shiur number 2, we discussed that there were two main reasons as to why we have the mitzvah of Sefirat HaOmer, counting the Omer. And that is because, number one, we want to remember that the day ahead of us is Shavuot. And Shavuot is a very exciting day. It is the most wonderful day of the year because we receive the Torah, and everything that we have in life is based upon the value system of the Torah, a God-given instruction manual to understand how to live our lives in this world. That's reason number one. Number two, so we're anticipating it. We're excited by it. So we say to ourselves, let's start counting, just like a person who's expecting a great reward, a great gift in days to come. And he says, it's going to be in 50 days time, I'm going to receive this thing. He says, oh, this is the first day of, I'm nearly there, second day, third day. And we discussed that it's not really appropriate to switch between the ideas of counting forwards and backwards. And therefore it was accepted, since we begin forwards, that we continue day number 1, day number 2, day number 3, until we reach the 49th day, and then the 50th day, which we don't count, which is Shavuot itself. The second reason that we count is because we want to prepare ourselves for something great. And what we're going to do is to improve ourselves on each day of the counting of the Omer. On the first day, we're going to work on ourselves on the attributes of kindness. And the second day also, and the third day also, and the fourth day, etc. But there are going to be aspects of the kindness that we need to channel correctly. There's a chesed shebechesed, kindness of kindness. There's a gevura shebechesed, where we hold ourselves back. We restrain ourselves within the kindness. There is a tiferet shebechesed, where we have to balance things out. There's a beauty within the kindness, and so on and so forth. Week number 1, week number 2, 7 weeks. 7 emotive Sefirot. Midot, as they are known as. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. Each of the weeks corresponds to one of the Sefirot, and each of the days of the week correspond again to one Sefirah. And when we put the two together, so we get the combination between the two, that's what we need to work on. In our last shiur, we also discussed the mitzvah of the Sefirat HaOmer from the Sefer HaChinuch, a wonderful book which is written to teach us the 613 commandments. I strongly suggest purchasing this book if you're able to, and to study from it. There is also an English translation, and of course you saw it is online, available free on Sefirat.org. Sefaria.org, sorry. I'm talking about the Sefirot. Of course, this is the name of Sefaria. Sefaria has also a combination, Sefaria, Sefirot, Safari. We go off on safari and we see the animals in their natural environment, and this is the safari of the Torah, where we get to see all of the spirituality of the Torah. Okay, so now we're progressing one step further. And in today's shiur, it's a wonderful shiur. Please stay tuned, because there are some beautiful mystical ideas that we're going to study. We're going to look at some comments, some quotes from the Zohar Chadash, from the Holy Zohar, and we're also going to look at a wonderful book called the Chesed L'Abraham, written by Rabbi Abraham Azulai, and again we're going to learn some secrets of the Torah. So please stay tuned, because there's good things still to come. Now, the commentary that we're working from, in any case, as I said before in the previous lessons, we're working from this book called U'Sefartem Lachem, and you shall count for yourselves the mitzvah of counting the Omer. And this is a book written by Rabbi Daniel Frisch, a great tzaddik. He died in 2005, and he was a great Kabbalist, somebody who understood the mystical side of the Torah. Of course, he was a great man in the revealed side of the Torah as well. Let us not play that down for a second, because in order to become a great Kabbalist, and I mean an authentic Kabbalist, please, I'm not referring to pop Kabbalah in this context. I'm referring to people who have spent their lives involved in purity, in holiness, in fulfilling the mitzvahs of the Torah, the negative mitzvahs, the positive mitzvahs, keeping the Shabbat, keeping a kosher lifestyle, kosher food, making sure that one fulfills the laws of family purity, giving charity as one should, keeping the mitzvot of Sukkot, of Pesach, eating the matzah, fulfilling the Yom Tov as it should be fulfilled. when a person engages in the mitzvahs in this way, and then he wants to elevate himself further, and he progresses to the level of understanding the secrets of the Torah, then of course the secrets become the kavanah, the intention behind everything. But a person who just has all of these kavanot, and unfortunately he does not practice properly. He breaks Shabbat left, right, and center. He doesn't eat a kosher diet. He eats kosher at home, but he eats out. God forbid all these things. Such an individual should not engage in the practice of the Kabbalah, because unfortunately he is not working on himself appropriately. What he is doing is he's working on kavanot, he's working on the ideas behind, he's working on the soul behind, but he forgets that there's a body that needs to implement the concept of the soul. God puts us in the world to do the mitzvot, and then as a bonus, we get to understand deeper into the mitzvah, and we begin to think about what the mitzvah is about, and we put it into practice. That is the true Makubal. That is the true Kabbalist. Of course, if a person wants to understand what exactly is the definition of the Makubal, this is another discussion, another shiur for another time. In the meantime, for our purposes, we're doing things on a very revealed level. But even so, there's a lot of material over here that is highly inspirational. So my first suggestion is, of course, fulfill the mitzvah of Sefirat HaOmer. Count every single day as it should be, as we learned in the previous two lessons. Fine. Now we go one step further, and when we engage in the process of the 49 days, we begin to work on ourselves by considering the power of the day. Oh, it's chesed shebechesed. What does that mean to me? What do I think about? How do I implement it? And how do I grow from that? And as we said before, this is a process that takes place every day of our lives. We must not think for a second that this is only a 49-day routine, but rather everything that we learn, we can put into practice every single day of the year. And therefore, these videos, if you've chanced upon it and it's not Sefirat HaOmer any longer, remember, these videos are available for you also during the year, because they can still be put into positive practice. Okay, we continue now with the shiur of today. And the idea, of course, is that we're speaking about how to prepare ourselves. And we're actually reading from this book, and then I'm going to be working from the book, and I'm also going to be showing the various quotes as they appear in the Zohar, so that the viewers, all my viewers, all of you, will be able to follow along in the words of the Zohar itself and see that, of course, I'm not just making things up in my mind. When I give a shiur, every time that I give a shiur, it has to be with the source. I want people to see that I'm not making this up. These are the words of the Holy Torah. These are the words of the Holy Zohar HaKadosh, and you can see it for yourself, and you can learn from it yourself and gain from the learning. So let's take a look and see. We're now quoting from the Zohar, which appears in Parshas Emor, Daf Tzadi Zayin Amud Beis. And let's take a look what it says over here. The Zohar teaches, Ki itita denafka mimisa'avu. This is like a woman who has gone out of her impure days. V'keivan denafka, since she goes out, mitamanu lahala, from then and onwards, v'safrala, she counts for herself. Okay, what are we talking about? We're talking about the mitzvah of family purity, ta'arat hamishpacha, the laws of nida. When a man marries a woman, he must implement the laws of family purity. A man may not be intimate with his wife may not be intimate with her husband, with him, until she is in a state of purity. Since she menstruates, what happens is, on a spiritual level, there is something deeper that is happening, and her soul enters into a state of what we call ritual impurity. She needs to wait for the bleeding to stop, and when the bleeding has stopped, she's going to count for herself 7 clean days. After she counts the clean days to make sure that there's no bleeding, she's going to purify herself, meaning in a physical aspect by cleaning her body and preparing herself correctly for a mikveh immersion. And that night following, after the 7 clean days, she's going to immerse in a mikveh. And after that, the couple may be intimate again. Just like Shabbat is a mitzvah of the Torah, and one needs to learn the 39 melachot and understand how to implement it. And just as Kashrut is a mitzvah of the Torah, and one needs to eat a kosher diet and make blessings on food, so too, if anybody wants to know, this is the third of perhaps the 3 solid foundations that every Jewish home should have. And this is the laws of family purity, where the husband and wife enter into a relationship of purity amongst themselves. A Jewish marriage is one where there is an on and off movement between the couple. There's always on and off. There's always the concept of moving forwards, moving backwards, giving, taking, constantly. This is what makes life wonderful. We don't just push forward in one particular direction. There's a constant movement forwards and backwards. Now, the idea is as follows, is that the couple should be together at a time that is appropriate, and they should not be together at a time that is inappropriate. When a woman is in a state of impurity, as we said before, that she had her cycle, this is a time that the couple must refrain from being intimate. And this implies every level of intimacy, no touching, nothing, no anything. When she goes to the mikvah after her purity, they may be together again as a couple. And as the Torah teaches us, the idea that we need to understand is that if one is close when one should be far, then here's the bad news. One will be far when one should be close. Modern society, the secular world today teaches, we can see it on TV and the movies, not that I know anything about that, of course, but this is how it goes. We see that what life is about is just being oneself and doing whatever one wants to, whenever one wants to, and this is called freedom. Well, when one looks at the general flow of life, one can see that such a behavior doesn't result necessarily, the very least, in such positive results. And many times couples get divorced over the fact that there's too much intimacy, too much frequency of this particular thing. Couples need a break, let's call it that way. And as a result, the couple wants to separate at a point when they should be getting close together. Marriage is about becoming closer as you progress in your married life. Year number 1, you're getting used to each other, you're learning about each other. Year number 2, so on and so forth. Year number 20, 30, 40, wow, the bond is starting to form. It forms that way because there is the break where it should be and the closeness where it should be. We need to be separated at certain parts in our lives and joined and connected at certain parts in our life. This is what creates the harmony in the married life. Fantastic. So how does that relate to what we're talking about? Well, the Zohar says to us, we can compare this concept of Pesach and Shavuot, the Sefirat HaOmer, to the idea of the woman who goes out of her state of impurity. Now, since she goes out from this point and onwards, and then she counts, and then she's going to be pure, and she goes to the mikvah, and now they're going to be close together again. Fantastic. Of Haka Yisrael. So too, does this apply to the Jewish people? Remember that the Zohar is written in Aramaic, and so the words that you see over here, you might not be familiar with. It's okay. We're going through it quite slowly. In fact, if you listen to me pronounce the words, you'll probably pick up on a number of words here and increase your Aramaic knowledge. Now, when they went out of Egypt, and of course, we're talking about the teachings, since we're talking about the teachings of Rabbi Daniel Frisch, he's the Baal Matok Midvash. He wrote an entire commentary on the Zohar Chadash, and there you will see all of these words translated. And if you get stuck, you can read the words in the Hebrew, and it's written in a very beautiful, easy Hebrew to follow. And if you look on the screen in front of you, there are many parts that are already translated into English from the English version, which of course doesn't hold the full sweetness of the translation because certain points are lacking. It's a very simple translation, not in accordance with all of the insights that will come about through studying in the Matok Midvash. In the meantime, I'm just reading the text as I see it over here in front of me, and where I need to, I will refer back to a point that might need further clarification. So this is also the Jewish people. Kad nafgu mi Mitzrayim, when they left Egypt, nafgu, they left, from their impurity. When they were in Egypt, they were in a state of impurity. They had got to the lowest level of impurity possible. There was just a small point. Had they descended to that point, it would have been all over. They were at the lowest of the low. They were in a society that was filled with the worst immorality possible. Egypt was a society of the lowest standards in immorality or morality, whichever way we talk about it. And certainly when it comes to sexual immorality, they were the very lowest of the low. And the Jewish people were there. I mean, it's kind of like being in a pit filled with mud. I mean, what can you do? You're stuck with the mud around. So you become part of the process of the mud that's around you. It's difficult to be stuck in a pit of mud and keep yourself clean. At the end of the day, the mud is there. One needs to stand, one needs to sit, whatever it is, and one dirties oneself. When one is in a society that is dirty, one takes on the attributes of the dirty society. When one is surrounded by people who are spiritually clean, one picks up on the cleanliness of these people. One becomes like they are also. So in the meantime, the Jewish people were now free, and they were taken out of this impurity. V'avdu Pesach. And they did this Pesach. They made the Pesach offering in order to eat from the table of their father. Who is their father? God, of course. And then from then onwards, they made for themselves accounting. They did counting. They were accountants in those days. The Jewish people were involved in accountancy. And they were doing an account of all what was going on. They were counting the days, just like we're going to do. And this is just like the same idea of drawing the woman close to her husband. In order that she could be joined to him. Just like the woman is impure and she counts the days, the 7 clean days, to get to a state of purity, and she can go to the mikveh and she can be prepared for her husband that evening together, to be in a state of holiness, intimacy, closeness. Now the Jewish people did the same thing. And these are the 50 days of purity. In order to go to the secrets of the world to come. To receive the Torah. And to bring close a woman to her husband. The woman, the Jewish people, coming close to her husband, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He. This is the point of the days of the Sefirat HaOmer. The Zohar says this is what we're doing. You want to get an insight on a mystical level? Remember, the study of Kabbalah is not just something that people think is magic, hocus pocus. How do I say certain things in a certain way to cause a certain thing to happen? This is what people think in their mind. This is what Kabbalah is. Spinning wheels and all sorts of things. And the wheel spins this way and that way. It's going to cause this to happen and that to happen. Who knows what people think in their mind? What Kabbalah is? Kabbalah is the mystical that goes on behind the revealed part of what the Torah is teaching us. Oh yes, sure. There are certain mystical things that people are aware of on that direction, in that particular way, in that direction. But when we learn Kabbalah, if a person wants to start his journey, he starts off with this taste. He starts off with this revealed part of the Kabbalah. And it is sweet. So what we're seeing over here is that the days of the Sefirat HaOmer, says the Zohar, the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, is that these are days where we are like a woman who prepares herself to be with her husband. Okay? We move across now to our next screen, which is coming on in just a moment. And let us just see. Here we go. This is from the Zohar Chadash, and it comes from Parshas Yisro, Daf Lamed Tet, Amud Aleph. And we're quoting in the middle over here from this point. Ela, the yapek yas Yisrael in galus de Mitzrayim. So here's what happened. Velo Mitzvah. Now we start here. Devadai Yisrael kad havu b'Mitzrayim. Now when the Jewish people were in Egypt, istavo ve'istnafo garmehon b'chol zinei mesavu. They dirtied themselves, they made themselves impure, they made their bodies impure with all types of impurities, says the Zohar. Until they were completely immersed underneath the 49 powers of impurity. 49 powers, what are you talking about? Wait a second. If you wait on for just a second, you're going to see we're going to be reading a very powerful teaching from Rabbi Abraham Azulai, and he's going to tell us what these 49 levels are. So the Jewish people at this point in time, the Israelites, as they were known in those days, were under the dominion, the domain, the powers of these 49 levels of impurity. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He took them from under the service of all of these other powers. More than this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out the Jewish people from these 49 levels of impurity. More than this, He brought them from the 49 gates of, He brought them to from the 49 gates to the 40. Let's just go through this again. I'm going to just read it from the Matok Midvash, that they were completely immersed under these 49 levels, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them out from under the shibud of the service of all of these powers. Fine. He took the Jewish people out of the powers. Ma'adelo asnei im Avraham, which wasn't the case with regards to Abraham. He took them out of Egypt, and he did a good thing on kindness with them. Let me just go through these points over here. He brings down over here, as we continue, and I'm not sure exactly where if I've lost the place over here. Okay. He continues over here. I'm not sure where I got lost, but I'll just read the rest of it. The rest is, and this is what we count of the Sefirat HaOmer from the second day of Pesach until the Yom Tov of Shavuot. And every day, God took us out of one level of impurity. Okay. And this was parallel to bringing us to the side of purity. So God took out the Jewish people on each day from one level of impurity, and He brought us to the side of purity. Okay. Let's go one step further, and let's look at this wonderful text of the Chesed L'Abraham. Now, the Chesed L'Abraham is a wonderful book. I'll just show it to you over here. You can see it's a very beautiful book, one of my favorites. And the Chesed L'Abraham is written by Abraham Azulai. Rabbi Abraham Azulai was a rabbi who made his way to Hebron. He lived, I think his dates were 1570 to 1643, if I'm not mistaken. He is just around the time that the Arizal dies. Meaning he was born just before the Arizal died, and then his generation continues, and he plays an important part, by the way, in revealing the text of the Arizal many years later. It is with thanks to Abraham Azulai and another great teacher that many of the texts that Reb Chaim Vital wrote, which were the teachings of his teacher, the Arizal, came to light only because of what he did on one particular occasion. We'll leave that story for another time in the meantime. What we do need to know is that Rabbi Abraham Azulai was also the great-grandfather of the Chidah, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, who was the great rabbi. He traveled the world and he wrote shelves of books to light up the eyes of the Jewish people. Shelves of books. It's a beautiful set of all the teachings of the Chidah. It fills up at least two and a half shelves worth of books. Fantastic. And the Chidah was to the Sephardi world like the Vilna Gaon. Rabbi Eliyahu Kramer of Vilna was to the Ashkenazi world. And he lived from 1727 to 1790, if I'm not mistaken. I think those were the years that the Vilna Gaon lived. That the Chidah lived, and he's the great-grandson of Rav Abraham Azulai, who made his way to Hebron, and was a very important rabbi and an outstanding Torah scholar in all areas of Torah, including sod, including the secrets of the Torah. In this book, Chesed L'Abraham, which is by no means an easy book to work through, please do not just lie back on your lazy boy chair and open up the book and start reading. This is an intensive work. It's a work that you have to open up and you have to concentrate on every single paragraph to understand exactly what it is that he's teaching. And in it, he shares some awesome secrets of life and the Torah. Beautiful things. Now, let's just read one particular teaching that he speaks about over here because it relates to these 49 days. Says the Chesed L'Abraham, V'yadua, it's known. She'ein, these are great secrets. Please keep them in your pockets. Don't tell the whole world about it. She'ein ha'adam nidon bebeis din shel maila, that a person is not judged in the court above, ela mi ben esrim shana ulamaila, except from the age of 20 and onwards, 20 and up. In other words, Chesed Abraham, Rabbi Abraham Azulai, is teaching us that in life, we're going to grow up. Remember what we discussed before? We already discussed this issue, the importance of growth. The child is born, the child is crying, the child doesn't do much. Then all of a sudden, the child begins to make certain sounds. And then afterwards, the child starts crawling around. Then the child starts speaking. Then the child is speaking better and is crawling. Now the child is walking. Then the child eventually is going to school. He's starting to learn to read. Before long, of course, he's studying medicine at the university and he becomes the professor. But at the end of the day, the surgeon, the professor, whatever he becomes, at the end of the day, life is about growth. And what God does to us as souls that enter the body is that he puts in certain powers at certain points in our lives. And therefore, we cannot compare the responsibility that a 4-year-old child will have in doing an action as a 20-year-old would have in doing a particular action. In the secular world, 18 is a legal age, or 21 is a legal age, or 16 is a legal age, whatever you want to call it. In Torah, in terms of the Beis Din Shel Maila, we say that a 20-year-old has reached a point of liability in that whatever he does then, he's certainly going to be liable for. Meaning before 20, the liability is of a completely different level. The Beis Din Shel Maila prosecute from the age of 20 onwards. Oh, yes, certainly from the age of 13 or 12 for a woman, for a girl, for a woman, those are the ages where the child must engage in mitzvah observance. They are obligated in mitzvah observance. But even so, the mind is not yet well enough matured to be able to deal with life as you would compare the mind of a 20-year-old adult. A 20-year-old is going to be responsible to a much greater degree than a 13-year-old. Of course, we want to say the 13-year-old should be careful. Don't steal, don't murder, of course. But when things happen, we need to judge the situation based upon the age that the person is at. So, the Torah teaches us that a person is only liable from the age of 20 and upwards. Fine? And once a person enters one day into the year of 21, which means to say he turned 20, because as soon as he turns 20, already he is on his first day in his journey to the age of 21. If he chooses good, and he despises bad, and he begins to occupy himself in the study of Torah and the fulfillment of mitzvahs, on the first night of this 20-year age that he becomes, Keshehu Yashan, Al Mitato, when he's sleeping on his bed, listen to the story. Azai Michael, then the angel Michael, Hasara Gadol, the great angel, the great minister, the great messenger from Shamayim, Sholeach Malach Echad, sends him an angel. Migdolei Machanotav, Gefiara Oiloi. He sends him an angel from one of the great of his camp, according to what's fitting for him. And he brings him in, he takes his soul and he puts him there at the entrance of the gate of the first palace, of the 50 gates of purity. Turns 20. If he's deserving, if he's doing things correctly, let us add those points. Because if he's not doing things correctly, this doesn't apply to him. If he's fooling about and then eventually gets to the age of 20 and he says, well, where are all the blessings of spirituality happening? They don't just happen. Rather, a person has to elevate himself in a certain way in the preparation that all this will take place. When will it take place? When he's 20. When? When he's engaged in the study of Torah and he's immersed in the Shulchan Aruch, he's immersed in the Talmud, he's immersed in the Tanakh, he's immersed in the Mishnayot, he's immersed in the Sefer Midrash, he's immersed in all parts of the Torah, he's observing the mitzvot, he's careful, Shabbos observance, oy vavoy, no writing on Shabbos, no driving cars, no switching lights on and off. Be careful to even not select good food from bad food, meaning bad food from good food. The good food you can select as long as you eat it immediately, but don't make separations. Here is the good food, here is the bad food. Do that, and one is breaking Shabbos. One is liable for skila. One is liable for the death penalty because one separated the food on Shabbat when one is not permitted to do so. One needs to engage in learning all these halachot. And of course, as we said before, the laws of family purity, of sexual purity, sexual morality. That's another big one. And of course, a man already should be married by the time he's 18 years old. The Torah is already saying to him, why aren't you married? The mitzvah really applies from the age of 17. From 17 years old, and one day, because now he's going into his 18th year, already he's liable for the mitzvah of marriage. Well, where is he at the age of 20? Is he waiting until 35 and 40 to get married? Well, that's too late. One should do everything that one can to marry early. And of course, one should do everything one can to help others to marry early, especially in the generation that we're living at the moment, where life is not as easy to find people at a younger age. It's not as easy to get started in life and build a home. And one needs the support of other people. Be that person to help them and support them to get them started. Rather than just indicate that they shouldn't get married because they sound like they're too young. But the Torah says the mitzvah is 17 years old. Now he gets to 20 years old. He's living a Torah lifestyle. Shabbos, Kashrut, family purity, he's married, probably got a child already, maybe even two. Okay, provided God blessed him, of course, with all of these things. Now, the angel comes to him in his sleep on that moment. Those who read the teachings of the Arizal will know that the soul progresses throughout its life, just like when the child is 3 years old and he matures at a certain age, a certain level. When he's 5 years old, he's maturing more. The brain is able to absorb more because Hashem is pumping in intellectual power into this child's soul, in this world, into the body, and the child is able to grow further. When he was 3 years old, couldn't really read properly. When he's 5 years old, he starts reading already. By the time he's 7 or 8, he's flying through books. No problem. So as we grow, Hashem puts into us spiritual powers to allow us to achieve more. When we turn 13, if we do things correctly, we can really become much greater. This is according to the Arizal, the teachings of Rechaim Vital, reading into the Shar HaGilgulim, the Sefer HaGilgulim, and all of these things are explained over there so we can understand the concept. But of course, these are for people who are on the path. They're there already. For the rest of us, we have to grow into it. We have to see, can we reach that level? But the bottom line is still, if we are on that path, listen to the message of Rabbi Abraham Azulai. And he says to us, so the angel comes, Michael. It is permitted to say the name Michael. There's no problem. People are called Michael even in the physical world. And we're not disturbing any part of creation by reciting the name of this angel. He comes along with one of the ministers of the camps. He's going to put him into one of the first stages now of the palaces of purity. And he brings him in according to the measurement of the merit of his soul. Now listen to this. And in this way, teaches the Chesed L'Abraham. He brings him even deeper inwards, according to the effort that he puts into studying the Torah and the fulfillment of the mitzvahs. Yes, holiness doesn't come about because we work all day and all night, and it's off to work we go. Because if we engage in this lifestyle of work, and it's all very well and good. There's nothing wrong with working all day and earning an income. One has to support one's family. Of course, one has to do it. But if one's lifestyle is such that everything that one does is all about the work, to the neglect of the service of God, then one is not on this level that we're talking about. We're talking about a person who, of course, he works. Everybody has to work. Everybody does something and he draws in income somehow. Fine. But nevertheless, the idea is that the focus of one's life is serving Hashem. Studying Torah the moment I have free time. Fulfilling mitzvot whenever I can. Here's the opportunity to fulfill a mitzvah. What am I going to do? Charity? I'm giving charity. Somebody needs to be, somebody's mourning. They lost a family member. We go and sit with them. We're with them. There's a simcha. Somebody's getting married. I'm going to be there with the chatan and kala and give them joy and give them a wonderful gift. Start them out. They're going to feel happy. They're not going to feel nervous. They're not going to feel they can't make it. I'm there for them. Another mitzvah. Mitzvah after mitzvah after mitzvah. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. When one does one mitzvah, it draws along in its train another mitzvah. That's the excitement of mitzvah observance. Study of Torah. I have a free moment. I open up. What do I open up? The Tanakh. I open up a Mishnah. I open up the Talmud. I try to learn a page of the Talmud if I can. Half a page even. Few Mishnayot with commentary. Some Shulchan Aruch. I need to know what to do, the practicalities. Maybe a Midrash or an Agadata. Maybe Ein Yaakov. Wow, there's so much to learn. People think in the secular world, sadly, that when they go to, let's say, a Jewish school or something like that, which they call a Jewish school, I put inverted commas, a Jewish school, they feel that when they finish the Jewish school, they already know what's Torah. The young boy turns 13, boom, he's bar mitzvah, he says, and that's it for me. That's where it ends. I already know all of Torah. No, that is incorrect. Now the time begins. And if one does not put the effort in to start studying at that point in time, one cannot suddenly at the age of 70 or 80 say, well, now I'm retired, I'm ready to start learning. Can you imagine trying to learn a vocabulary like this at the age of 70 or 80? Just the vocabulary itself is going to be an effort to get through, let alone understanding the concept, let alone working through the book. And how many books have we discussed already? And we did the Sefer HaChinuch already. We discussed the Rambam. Here we're doing the Chesed L'Abraham. Now we're doing U'Sefartem Lachem. Fine. Look at all these wonderful books that we're learning. Well, if you wait until 70 and 80 to get there, it's not going to happen. Life is that growth process. We move through it. We keep on studying on the level that we are until we get greater and greater in our learning. So this angel, if we're doing things correctly, comes to a person every night to say, where is it? Don't worry about it. The angel appears in all sorts of ways. Don't imagine it appears in front of you with its wings flapping. Please. What we're talking about is the nature of the concept of malach, whereby the message is revealed to the person and the person knows what to do. There's an instruction to the person, even if he's not quite sure what it is yet, he will come to know exactly what it is at the right time. Things are happening when we sleep at night. Things are happening to us, even if we're not sure of it. Some of us know that we dream, and we tell people afterwards, we had this in this dream. Fine, but that's just a dream. At the same time, there are other things going on that when we wake up, they are wiped off us. But the soul remembers those things. For a person who's actively involved in Torah study and his connection to Hashem all the time, he reaches a level whereby secrets are revealed to him in his dreams. Imagine that for a second. But that is true. That is what happens. The tzaddikim, the great Talmidei Chachamim, this is what they're dreaming. They're not dreaming about nonsense going on. And can the elephant fit through the head of the pin? The needle, can it fit through the needle? Can it fit through the point of the needle, etc.? We're not talking about silly dreams. We're talking about dreams of value. When a person wakes up, he has experienced a growth. He has experienced a scene, a happening. He's experienced knowledge that comes to him during that evening. So this is what happens to him now. According to the Chesed L'Abraham, if this person is attuned to Torah, then these are the things that become revealed to him. And every night that goes by, as he increases in his Torah study, he learns more and more. Fine. If he merits to get to the 50th level, isn't that what we were talking about? The 50 levels. If he gets to that 50 level with the 50 days between Pesach and Shavuot, now we're starting to think about the connection here a second. If he reaches the 50th level, meaning to say that the angel has revealed these things to him, here I do not pronounce the name. This particular angel is an evil angel. And you know, there's a concept in life in general. If you want to succeed in something, speak about positive things. If you don't want to succeed, speak about negative things, of course. The more that we speak about negativity and the terrible things that go on in life, what does a person think is going to go on in his life? But if he thinks about positive good things, he's learning positive good things, he's teaching positive good things, his mind is working in positive good things, he's going to be on the right track for positive good things. Therefore, if I pronounce the name of this particular angel, meaning, let's start off, if I say the name Michael, who was the angel we were speaking about up until now, I'm associating myself with goodness, with power, with purity. Other angels, we have to discuss, can we say their name, can we not say their name? We need to see what the Arizal teaches us about this. But in the meantime, when it comes to pronouncing the name of this particular angel, and you'll notice that there are these inverted commas by the name, which teach us this is the name of an angel. Whenever you see this in the Sifrei Kabbalah, you usually can know that even if you don't know what it is, you know it's the name of an angel. Because the inverted commas warn you that don't pronounce the name. Don't pronounce the name. Don't say the name. Either because it's a forbidden name because the angel is a very great, powerful angel, and you shouldn't say the name, or alternatively because the angel is a negative angel. And as we said, if you start talking negative things, you're going to attract negative energy to yourself. This is ABCs. Turn on the videos on YouTube, see people who have made successes in their lives, and they'll tell you again and again what it's all about is the positive energy. Either I'm internalizing positive energy from others, or I'm giving out the positive energy from myself. That's what life is about. If I now engage in reciting the name of this negative energy angel, I am attaching myself to the negative energy angel. And that itself is a dangerous thing. Therefore, do not say it. So what happens here? If a person gets to that 50th level, because the angel Michael and his camp of angels underneath him begin to reveal themselves to this person, he gets to the 50th level, he then becomes a free person from this negative angel who is in charge of all negative attributes and things in the world. He is the Satan. He is the Malach HaMavis. He is the angel of death. He represents everything negative. We want to get away from him. But everybody knows the day is not so simple. It's filled with all sorts of energies, so many difficult things that we go through in our minds, in our speech, in our action, and we feel that there's too many trials. We can't take it, can't cope with it. Yes, it's this negative energy pushing up against us, preventing us from becoming who we really can become. How do we become what we really want to become? Well, if we reach this 50th level, the Chesed L'Abraham says that the angel is pushed aside completely from a person and can have no effect on him. Once we reach that high level, we push aside all negativity, and all that we become is this positive, powerful energy to serve Hashem and to do what's right. V'shuv eino pachad mimenu. He says from this point onwards, he has no fear of him. Aval kol zman shelo zacha lehikanes leheichal hanun. But so long as he's never getting into that 50th gate, afal pi sheniknas beheichal memtet. Even if he gets to level number 49 of purity, עדיין יש כוח באדם בבחירתו להתגבר עליו יצר הרע. He still has the power over a person in his choice to strengthen himself, that the Yetzer Hara is going to strengthen himself over the person. The evil inclination will still have an effect even at level number 49. להיות תוהה מן הראשונות, להוציאו מן המ"ט היכלות, in order to regret the first things that he did and to bring him out from the 49 palaces hatara of purity, ולהכניסו בהיכלות הטומאה, and to bring him into the gates of impurity, which means even if he reaches 49, but he's not there yet. I'll give you an example. The famous example is given, and you can relate to it yourself. Once I tell you this example, you'll see it in action every single day of your life. Let's say a person wants to become successful in studying anything. First of all, I'll give you 2 examples. They say in the world that to become great at something, you need to involve yourself in 10,000 hours worth of that particular thing. If you want to become the best, so you want to learn to play the piano, or you want to learn to, let's say I want to become a sofer, right? I'm a sofer. You want to become the best sofer. You need to invest 10,000 hours in these things. So if you invest 100 hours, it's fantastic. You'll be good. You go, you'll play, Peter Pumpkin Eater. If you want to, on the piano, you can do it, But if you want to play Bach, or you want to play Mozart, you're going to need hundreds of hours of practice. You're going to need thousands of hours. And if you want to become one of the greats, the greatest musician who's earning the highest salary in the world, he's in demand all around the world for concerts and whatever, one needs to invest one's entire life. 10,000 hours, then one can become successful. Now let's take it one step further. Let's say, for example, a person says he wants to be a master in studying Gemara, or Torah, any aspect of Torah. So he says to himself like this. He says, I'm going to open the book. And he says, now I'm going to study. Hold on a second. He says, I need a cup of coffee. He goes, he gets a cup of coffee. Fantastic. He has a sip of the coffee. He reads another verse or two. Hold on a second. He says, I need a piece of cake. He goes off, he gets a piece of cake. So he's eating his cake now. He goes to the second verse that he's reading, the third verse. He said, hey, don't have to call somebody. Yes, he picks up the phone. He gives him a call. Okay. So then he goes, oh, he learns a bit more. Then hey, somebody sent me a message on WhatsApp. Let me see what it is. This individual will never acquire what it is that he seeks to acquire. Why? Because this is comparable to the idea of a pot that is heating up on the stove. The water is boiling. The water is starting to heat up, right? And then just before the water boils, he switches it off. It's cooled down a little bit. He puts it back on again. And just before the water boils, again, he turns it off. And he keeps telling people this water never boils. Now, the reason it never boils is because you're never allowed to boil. But if you leave it on just that extra amount extra, you'll see that the water will start boiling. You can't play around. You can't put the pot on the fire and take it off. Put the pot on the fire, take it off. What you need to do is to put it on the fire and leave it until it boils. This is the same thing. If a person is striving for these levels of purity, for this 50 levels of purity, what does he have to do? He has to go all out. If he doesn't reach level number 50 and he's still on level number 49, he still falls back onto the levels of impurity, and the Yetzer Hara can grab him all the way back and bring him back to zero if need be, if it wants to. The only time that we can be free of this Yetzer Hara is when we're able to progress to level number 50 and then everything falls away. Says the Chesed L'Abraham. One step further, v'chein, so too. Mi shebeyom rishon shel shanat chaf aleph, somebody from the age of the first day of his 21st year. Hitchil limos betov, he begins to despise good. When he turns 20, what's it time for? Oh, it's time for the clubs. It's time for the dancing. It's time for the music. It's time for fun, fun, fun. Life is just beginning, and I need to experience it. So he says to himself, that at the age of 20, moving on to the age of 21, he begins to despise the good. He's mixed up in his mind what's good and what's bad, and he thinks what's good, he thinks what's good is bad, he thinks what's bad is good. He's mixed up. He's just past his teenage years, and he's ready for life, and he thinks he's got it all worked out, and he engages in life with enthusiasm, but he's got it all wrong. And what he imagines to be good is bad, and what he imagines to be bad is good. As I said before, if you draw close when you should be far, you'll be far when you should be close. These things keep having an effect. They keep returning to themselves. So what happens to him? When he turns 20 and he's going to 21 and he's beginning his life, and he says to himself, and he says, V'livchor bara, he chooses the bad. V'azav orchot yoshel alechet b'darchei choshech, and he leaves the paths of straightness to go in the direction, in the paths of darkness. Azai keshehu yashan al mitato, when he's sleeping on his bed, Sholeach Samach Mem, this particular angel, the power of the Yetzer Hara, he sends Echad Migdolei Machanotav. He sends one of the greats of his own camp. According to the measurement of the level of the soul of the one who's sinning. He brings him into the palaces of impurity. And then he brings him inside from the opening to the gate of the first palace, according to what his deeds are, meaning his sins. According to what his sins are, all the sins that he does, at this point in time, the angel brings him into that direction. As the Torah teaches, if a person chooses evil, then God opens up the path and says, there it is for you. You choose it, it's for you. Go for it. God doesn't do much except to leave the path open. But one who chooses the path of good, God brings him into the path of good. Which means to say, the moment that we accept upon ourselves to go in the direction of good, and our mindset is in that direction, at that point in time, God allows us to go in the direction that we wish to pursue. When we set ourselves up in the way of negativity, and we push the button, boom! Tonight, it's a night of dancing, disco, and clubbing, and whatnot. God forbid. Then God says, that's fantastic. The night is there for you. And where's it going to lead? Well, ask yourself, what have you seen before in scenarios like that? On the other hand, if you say, tonight is a night at the Beis Midrash, I'm studying Torah, well, we know where that's going to go. All the books that are available, the majestical palaces that begin to open up because of the books that we read. Just like people know to make a separation, havdil, elef havdalot, when a person reads a fiction book, and they're just words that he's reading, and yet in his mind he can bring up all sorts of images. He turns the story into a fantasy in his mind. It's never existed, but his mind starts seeing it and starts working on it. He sees the story happening. All the more so when a person is engaged in the study of Torah, his mind opens up and he sees all these palaces start opening up in front of him. So therefore, when a person speaks about negativity, when he engages in the negativity from the age of 20, it's not Michael and his camp that take the person to where he should be. It's the angel Samach Mem and his camp that take the person in that direction, opening up one gate, one palace, saying, here it is. Before long, you never know where you're going to be. At the moment, everything looks fine, but before long, you don't know where you're going to end up. And that is the nature of good. That is the nature of evil. In turning to good, one good deed leads to another good deed. One bad deed leads to another bad deed. That's the way people work. Once already a person fixes his mind in a good way, then he seeks the good all the time. He keeps going from one good thing to the next. If he seeks the bad, he automatically goes in the direction of bad. And then one day he serves idols. He doesn't even realize how he got there. Fine. That's his decision. But the Chesed Abraham tells us that is what's going to happen. So he brings him into this gate. Ve'im harbe hirba lifshua. And if he increases in his sin, then they bring him into the 50th gate. V'shuv eino takano lamit. And from then, he has no repair forever. If he gets to gate number 50, everything changes. Like we said before, on the side of good. If he gets to gate number 50 on the side of good, all negativity is stripped from him. He never falls back into the level of negativity. If he goes in the direction of negativity and the Samach Men brings him all the way to level number 50, because that's the direction that he was pursuing, then where does he end up eventually? He can never return to the good. Why are we learning all this? What's this got to do with the idea of the Exodus of Egypt, of Pesach, of Shavuot, of Sefirat HaOmer? 1 second, we're getting there in a moment. So they bring him into the 50th gate, and there's no takana, there's no way to repair it. And about him it says, something that is broken, muvat is broken, something that's bent over and broken, you can't fix it. Meaning, Shlomo HaMelech was saying, once it gets to that stage, there's no way to repair. And it's on this condition that the palaces of purity and impurity are created. But as long as he didn't get into gate number 50, shel tuma, of impurity, even though he got to level number 49, as we said before, on the side of good for 49. When he gets to 49 on good, he can still fall back to bad. But if he falls to 49 on bad, what do we say? Then, this is a mistake we can see it's an error in the print over here. That should be a taf, not a chet. Then at that point in time, if he gets to 49, but he regrets, meaning that he chooses good, he can still regret the first things that he did. At that point in time, he can break through the doors of copper, and he is able to completely break through the iron, through the iron rods, and to go out of the 49 palaces of Tumah, of impurity. He can finally enter into the palaces of purity. And this is what the secret is that the rabbi said, a person can acquire the world to come, his world, where he really belongs, in a moment. It calls it an hour, sha'achat, but sha'a words, it means really just a moment. In 1 moment, a person can turn everything over for the good. In 1 moment, he can unravel the whole story. He was there on the very level, the highest possible level of impurity, but he didn't yet get to 50, because once he gets to 50, there's no turning back. He can never do it. But on 49, he can still put himself back. He can fall off the ladder of ascent to impurity, and he can hit the ground very quickly. Boom, gets back on track, shoots up to the top, and he's able to go to the side of purity. The Soda Inyan, and the secret is, who Ki hayote rasha shebi the worst evil person in the Jewish people, even though he carries on with his evil. It's impossible to enter into that 50th gate of impurity. Chesed L'Abraham tells us deep secrets. He says it's impossible to get to that level unless we go through a process of evil for 400 continuous days, one after the other. 400 days, says the Chesed L'Abraham, of continual impurity will bring us to gate number 50. Meaning, if every day we wake up and we say, you know what, I'm not interested in mitzvot. What do I need this for in my life? Nah, I'm going to break Shabbos outright. I'm going to eat non-kosher food outright. I'm going to speak Lashon Hara all day long. God forbid he's involved in all these activities. 400 days of wickedness will lead a person to a stage that he'll never want to return back ever again to the side of good. Just like, of course, we're learning, if one does 400 good days, one can turn everything over for the good, that one can inherit the 50th gate of this purity and never fall back onto the side of the Yetzer Hara. V'da, you should know, sheyesh mesodes Kabbalah biyad razal. The rabbis have a secret to tell us. They have a tradition of what they received in the hands of the rabbis received this. The Jewish people, they so impurified, they so dirtied themselves up with all of the abominations of Egypt. On the evening of Pesach, guess what? You know that night, the 15th day of Nisan, that year, when the Jewish people were going to be freed, they entered into gate number 49. Palace number 49. If they held back themselves, if they just went a little bit more, they would have entered into gate number 50, and they would never have been able to repair themselves ever. That's the secret that says, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu had not taken us out of Egypt, then, as we say in the Haggadah of Pesach, if God, the Holy One, blessed be He, had not taken us out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's Avoseinu Misham, He didn't take our forefathers out, Adain Anu, Uvaneinu, Ubenei Baneinu. We and our children and the children of our children, Meshubadim Hayinu Lefaro B'Mitzrayim. We still, all of us, would have been enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Why would we have been enslaved? Because we would have reached level number 50. And once we get to level number 50, there's no going back. We would have been stuck in the mentality and the mentality of slavery, the physicality of slavery. We would have been stuck there completely, never being able to pull ourselves out. Therefore, Niktav nun pa'amim, Yetziat Mitzrayim b'Torah. Rabbi Abraham Azulai tells us, if you do accounting, I never did this, but feel free to do it sometime. Either do it on the computer check or go through the entire Torah, and as you do so, whenever you see it, please mark it down. He says that Yetziat Mitzrayim is mentioned 50 times in the Torah, and this is from a Sefer Yad, from a manuscript. So this is the idea that we're saying. In other words, the whole point of the Yetziat Mitzrayim was to pull us out of the 49 levels, 50 possible, 49 levels of impurity, to get us out of that way of thinking. We had to change our mindsets. Only a person who thinks in a manner of slavery gets himself into slavery, which means the moment one is a slave, if you continue to think the slavery thoughts, you get yourself into the rut of being a slave. The only way out is to pull oneself into the way of thinking, not like a slave, so that one can get out. Isn't it interesting to note? Let's look at the countries of the world, how the countries function today, modern society. We see so many places in the world that have changed their style of where they came from, environments where they had been slaves, and they got themselves to a level of being free. Through the governments, various countries, those who know what I'm talking about. And how did they do it? They did it because one person, two people, 3, 4, 5, 10, started to think beyond what slavery is. You cannot do this to us. You cannot put us into a situation like this. And once they started thinking that way, they were able to pull themselves out, and boom, before long, they were in a situation where they were free and others might be struggling. That is the idea of the slavery, where one gets oneself out of a certain way of thinking, bringing oneself into freedom. And when one is free, one is able to serve Hashem. Okay, so this is where we're at this point in time. What we've covered today is some wonderful ideas. We've quoted from two sources in the Zohar. We've quoted from this beautiful book, Chesed L'Abraham, and we've seen that the idea that we have encountered is one of what, in essence, is the Sefirat HaOmer that we're going to do. It is the process of bringing ourselves slowly, day by day, out of this slavery to get to a state of freedom where we receive the Torah. How are we going to do it? This, of course, is all introductory work. We haven't yet got to the stage of actually doing anything. We're just getting ourselves to think correctly. How are we going to do it? We're going to start working on ourselves through each day, working on an attribute, an emotive attribute of the Sefirot, understanding Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, etc. So that as we work on ourselves, we push out of ourselves that negative energy. We work on bringing the positive energy into ourselves, and it is that we become that brings us freedom. As we said before, and we're going to continue saying it again and again a few times, the idea, of course, is what we're going to learn over here is that, I should actually read it here just before we end off, is that he writes over here on the bottom that that the Chesed Abraham says later on. I didn't really see it directly under here, so I'm just bringing it in over here. Kigam hayom, today as well, he says, Mi sheyashir o yitzadek b'meshek arba me'ot yom retufim. Today, a person who will do evil or he will do good for a period of 400 days continuously. He will enter into the 50th gate. And it's as if he won't have any choice. This is, for example, like the story. Let's say a person is working on a diet for himself. He suddenly realized the importance of being healthy. So he says to himself, well, what am I going to do? It's going to be fruits and vegetables, or it's vegetables, right? Vegetables and some fish. He works out the diet in a way that's going to be the most beneficial. He doesn't want to engage in sweets and chocolates. He doesn't want to engage in crisps and all sorts of artificial flavorings and additives and all sorts of things. He starts to say to himself, I'm going to eat this healthy diet. So day number one, he eats it. He feels like it's a big strain. You know, he wants that slab of chocolate. He wants that cake. It's fantastic. You know, he wants all the potatoes, whatever it is. He starts thinking about all the good food that he was accustomed to, and he starts realizing that the healthy diet is a hard one to stick to. You know, the day 2 goes by. He does the same thing. It's not so easy. Day 3, day 4. One day he turns around and he says to himself, not only am I used to this diet, he says, I can't imagine ever going back. This is the ultimate diet to have. And he says, I feel healthy. I would never choose another diet. Here's another example. Person goes to work out at gym. And we know the story. Day number 1, he goes to gym and he's doing his reps and he's pushing the weights and he's doing the sit-ups and he's doing press-ups, whatever it is. And he says, 1, 2. How many do I have to do? 10. He gets through 10. Next day comes back. You know, it wasn't so bad. He could do 10. Next day, he says, I'll do 20. Next day, it's like 30. All of a sudden, he turns around one day and he says, he can't go a day without putting in this effort to do the exercise. It is the exercise that makes him feel healthy and good. He's able to get by the day because he does the exercise. He can't pull himself away from it. He loves the healthy lifestyle. A person who smokes, he gets addicted to it. He says, this is what life's about, cigarette after cigarette. Of course, he makes his body an unhealthy vessel, and he thinks that's good. He thinks, fantastic. But before long, somebody says to him, look, it's unhealthy for you. So he says, I'll try stopping. Day number 1, he tries, it's dreadful. Day number 2, it's even worse. 3, even worse. Turns around a year later, says, I forgot what cigarettes taste like. I don't want it anymore. My body feels so much stronger without that cigarette's smell in me. The cigarette, all this vapor that's sitting in my lungs. I feel so healthy now. How could I have ever done it? He suddenly realizes the value of the health that he's gaining from not smoking. Or the alcoholic. We see, for example, a person gets addicted to alcohol and he thinks that the alcohol is bringing him good things. Day number 1, he drinks alcohol. He feels terrific. Day number 2, he feels even better. He says, fantastic how he feels. Until one day he realizes that he's completely addicted and there's something wrong. Somebody gets him out of this loop of activity and he starts getting himself off it. And one day he turns around. You ask the alcoholic who's managed to get himself off, and he says to you, I feel so much healthier. Why would I ever have another drink? Keep it away from me. I don't want to know about it. He flips himself over. A person who engages in good activity for 400 days straight. 400 days Gemara study, 400 days Mishnayot study, 400 days Tanakh, 400 days Midrash, 400 days Agadah, 400 days some Sifrei Arizal, 400 days, Torah, Torah, Torah. When he gets to the end of 400 days, says Rabbi Abraham Azulai, he won't be able to turn back ever again. He'll feel himself in such a moment of excitement, of spiritual happiness, that he won't be able to put himself back again. The person who engages in this in negativity will not be able to get back to positivity if he reaches point number 50. If he does it positively, he will never go back to negativity. It takes 400 days to do. Why is he telling us all this? I thought he brings it down here. He's going to bring it down later, no problem. But as we're going to learn, is that we're going to be taught, and I think it's, again, it's the Chesed L'Abraham who teaches us this, that the days of the Omer are actually comparable to those 400 days. And therefore, what a person is able to attain, as we're going to see later, perhaps in the next lesson, what a person is able to obtain in the Sefirat HaOmer is something that would take 400 general days to get through. But if he puts the effort in just to these days, he'll be able to manage and succeed in these days without having to go through the entire cycle of 400 days. Put the effort into Sefirat HaOmer. It will take over that nothing else will bother a person any longer. Okay, we have to work out the calculations of all these ideas, 365 days in the year. He's talking about 400 days. Surely the Sefirat HaOmer is in any case going to be there, whatever. But the end of the day is, these days of Sefirat HaOmer are days to work on, that if a person does the work correctly, he will be unable to go back to the bad ways that he was accustomed to. He will only want good. He will only want Torah. He will only want the spirituality. Of course, he'll be part of the physical world, like everybody else. Can't escape it. We have bodies. Fantastic. But his mindset will be one of positivity, goodness, kindness, happiness to himself, towards Hashem, and also to other people. But as he said before, it's a great challenge. We're going to go along this journey, Bezrat Hashem, Bili Neder. I'd like to have your comments, so please do put comments below and tell me how you're finding the shiur, because I want to know that people are enjoying it, that will give me the encouragement to want to give another shiur and to continue. And we're going to work through it together and go through all of these Sefirot so that we can work through the days and become greater people. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Sher from Chesed Ve'emet. My website, www.lovingkindness.co. If you've enjoyed the shiur, please do like the shiur by clicking on the thumbs up button below the video. Also, please subscribe to my channel, of course, if you haven't, and click on the bell button to notify you of future shiurim. Every time the shiur is uploaded, you'll be notified first, and you can watch the video immediately. You don't have to wait for me to send you an email and let you know that the video is out there, but rather you'll know about it immediately. Please do feel free to comment below. Positive comments, please. I'm looking for positive comments. What are you enjoying? Questions, insights? Please feel free to use the comment section and to share your ideas with me as well, and to everybody else who is viewing this video. So likewise, if you would like to learn with me privately, one-on-one, I do Torah teaching of any Torah book that you'd like to learn, on the side of the Nigla, of the Revealed Torah, on the side of the introductions to the Nistar. We can go through that. I also offer services in online coaching, spiritual coaching, Torah coaching. Everything is done from a Torah perspective. I must point that out. I'm not here to give a psychological analysis of your situation. Rather, my duty is to guide and to help you, so that if you're having challenges in life and you're not sure what direction to take, we speak out the issue from a Torah point of view. What does the Torah say is the right direction to take? And it's a wonderful approach, and it helps us to put things in balance without getting involved necessarily with all the psychology of things, but just looking at life as a process of growing close to Hashem spiritually and becoming closer to oneself. I do offer these services, and please feel free to contact me if this does interest you. So thanks a lot for joining me today, and I look forward to another shiur. I wish you everything of the best. Take care. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.